While I was in Europe, this whole refugee/immigrant crisis was exploding. And in fact, coming back on the train yesterday, I got home last night. So if I sound a little goofy, I feel a little goofy. If I sound a little goofy, it's jet lag. I got home last night and just in time to spend about an hour talking with Louise and then go to bed. But I changed where I was in Germany. It's a little town called Steinach, which is way the heck out in, it's halfway between, I don't know what it's halfway between. It's about an hour north of Nuremberg. It's in the northern area of an area called, northern part of an area called Franconia, the Franconian Forest, the Frankenwald, the Franconian Forest, which is north of Bavaria, and which is south of what used to be East Germany, like on the way up to Berlin. And it's very rural and it's very, very out there. And in order to get there, I had to take 3 trains, right? I fly into Frankfurt. I take the train from the Frankfurt Flughafen, from the Frankfurt airport to Würzburg, which is about the halfway point. They've got a IC train, a high-speed train. And boy, are the trains cool in Europe. I mean, so fast, and you sit there with a glass of water on the table in front of you, and it hardly even moves, right? As you're traveling over 100 miles an hour. And so anyhow, I took the train from there to Würzburg, and then I had to take a train from Würzburg to Bamberg, and then from Bamberg to Lichtenfels, and then from Lichtenfels to Kulmbach, and then I take a taxi for the last 5 miles to Steinach. So that was my trip, and the reason I tell you about that is that at almost every one of these train stations where I was changing trains, and the German rail system is, I should have brought the receipt in with me. It's just for my train ticket. It's just incredible. I mean, you will arrive at 9:36 on gate 4, literally 9:36, not 9:30, 9:36, and gate 4, and you leave out of gate 7 at 9:41. Right? And so you've got 4 minutes to make it from one gate to the other. And it always works because the trains are always on time. And I had one of those, oh my God, I wish I'd realized moments. And I think it illustrates what's going on right now in Europe, just kind of by way of telling you a story. I noticed at first, when I first flew into Germany, I arrived Thursday around noon. I flew out of here Wednesday night and arrived Thursday around noon and took the train from Frankfurt to Steinach, that long train ride that I just described to you. And I noticed, now I had been on an overnight flight. I had slept maybe 4.5 hours. I had had probably at least one glass of wine more than I should have. I was not in the best of shape on the way to Steinach. I mean, my goal was just to get there and get to sleep and catch up and be ready for the next day. But I kept noticing people who looked kind of Middle Eastern, darker skin than what you normally see in Europeans, black hair and whatnot. And I lived in Germany for a year. There's a lot of, they call them Gastarbeiters, guest workers, the Turks who came to Germany in the 1950s to rebuild the country. And they're around, and you encounter them a lot. And they've fairly well integrated themselves into German society, and they speak German like natives because many of them are 2nd, 3rd, 4th generation, born there. But these folks looked a little different. Their clothes tended to be shabbier, and they either were carrying no suitcases at all, or in some cases you'd see a family, 4, 5, 6 people, and they'd have like 12 bags, and they were, ratty old things. And I just didn't put 2 and 2 together on my way over, that these were the refugees from Syria that Germany is taking 800,000 of, and that they have to go from place to place by train too, right? I just, it just didn't connect to me. And it still hadn't connected to me, even though I'd had a number of conversations with people about the refugee thing. So on the way back, I'm sitting at the train station in in Würzburg, and the kind of the halfway point. And the train is supposed to leave from gate 5 at 11:55, as I remember. I'm pretty clear about that. And everybody, and there's all these people, me and maybe 100 Germans or so, and some of these rather poorly dressed Middle Eastern looking folks. And they all tended to be younger too, by the way. There might be like, a family elder, but mostly it was kids and young people in their 20s. Young for me, anyway. And so I'm on gate 5 along with all these folks, and the train is supposed to arrive in about 15 minutes. And I heard on the announcement over the speaker that the train had been delayed by 25 minutes, which, as I said, almost never happens in Germany. But there was a delay on the train. And they had moved it from Gleis 5, from gate 5 to Gleis 8, to gate 8. And I was only half paying attention. I wasn't quite sure that I exactly heard that. I thought, okay, they'll repeat the announcement. But I noticed that the platform that I was on was evacuating. People were leaving. Until it was like me, I was sitting there reading International Herald Tribune. And one of these families, one of these, what I now realize to be refugee families, and a railroad cop they're not just like police like here. I mean, they help people out and they give people advice and they show you where to go and all this kind of stuff. Very nice fellow. Walked past the refugee family and over to me and said in German, where are you going? And I said, and I always start in English, even though I can speak German. If I start in German, they start talking to me really fast and then I'm lost. And so I said in English, I'm going to Frankfurt Flughafen, to the Frankfurt airport. And he said, you must go to gate 8. It has changed and the train will be late. And so I, put 2 and 2 together and said, thank you very much, and got up and left. And he had walked right by this refugee family and never said a word to them. And they're sitting there, and I was still in my head thinking that these must be relatives of Gastarbeiters, the old Turks who had been in Germany or something. I don't know. It hadn't yet sunk into me. And so I walked by them too, and I went down underground and over to gate 8 and came back up to gate 8, and I'm sitting there at gate 8 looking at them all by themselves. Nobody's talking to them at gate 5. And it suddenly hit me as my train is arriving that they're probably trying to get to Frankfurt too, and they don't speak German. And the police officer, nice guy that he was, didn't speak to them either. Because there's this incredible ambivalence in Europe. There are some people who are saying, oh yeah, bring the refugees in. And there are other people who are going, oh my God, it's brown people. It's like, it's the Donald Trump thing, It's like, you could argue that many of the people from Mexico in the United States are here because they are refugees from NAFTA, from our subsidy of the corn industry, and to some extent from climate change. And certainly from the war on drugs. They are refugees fleeing. And in Europe, there's this huge debate, and this cop was not going to help them. Right? And in Germany, there's this, and all over Europe, but I was reading it in the Süddeutsche Zeitung, the more conservative German newspaper that I used to read regularly. There's a big debate about whether to call them migrants or immigrant or refugees.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Because according to the rules of the European Union, if you call them refugees, you have to take them in. If they're migrants, you don't have to. And things are changing really fast.